Welcome to UK Property Info. For decades, London has been the undisputed centre of opportunity in Britain. The place where careers were made, fortunes built and dreams pursued. People accepted cramped flats, insane commutes and eye-watering costs because the trade-off made sense. What you sacrificed in quality of life, you gained in opportunity, culture and career progression. That equation worked for generations, but something fundamental has shifted in the past 2 years. And millions of Londoners are waking up to a troubling realisation. The deal no longer works. What you pay to live in London increasingly exceeds what you get back. And for the first time in modern history, leaving feels less like giving up and more like escaping. Before I explain exactly what changed and why London suddenly feels like a bad deal for so many people, I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel if you find this analysis valuable. That simple action helps this channel grow and allows me to keep producing independent property analysis that tells the truth about what is really happening in the UK housing market. Now let me show you why living in London has become a losing proposition for millions. Let me start with the most obvious factor because it is the one that hits hardest every single month. Housing costs in London have reached a level that can only be described as absurd. The average rent for a one-bedroom flat in London is now over £2,000 per month. Not in Mayfair or Kensington, the average across all of London, including the outer zones. A two-bedroom flat averages over £2,500. A modest family home with 3 bedrooms will cost you £3,500 or more per month in most areas with decent transport links. These are not luxury properties. These are basic functional homes that would rent for a third of the price in most other UK cities. The median salary in London is around £45,000. After tax and national insurance that leaves you with roughly £2,800 per month. If you are paying £2,000 for a one-bedroom flat, you are spending over 70% of your take-home pay on housing alone. Even couples combining 2 professional salaries find themselves handing over 40 to 50% of their joint income just to keep a roof over their heads. This arithmetic simply did not apply 10 years ago when the same flat might have cost £1,200 and salaries were not dramatically different. But here is what has really changed. In the past, you accepted London's housing costs because the salary premium was substantial and real. London jobs paid 20 to 30% more than equivalent roles elsewhere. That premium justified the higher costs and often left you financially ahead despite the expensive rent. That salary premium has collapsed. Remote work has allowed companies to hire talent from anywhere. Northern cities have developed genuine professional economies with competitive salaries. The London premium for many professional roles has shrunk to 10% or even 0. Meanwhile, London costs have continued climbing. You are paying 30 to 50% more for housing to earn 10% more in salary. The maths that once worked in London's favour now works decisively against it. A senior professional earning £70,000 in London might take home £4,300 monthly and pay £2,500 in rent, leaving £1,800 for everything else. The same professional earning £65,000 in Manchester takes home £4,000 monthly and pays £1,200 in rent, leaving £2,800 for everything else. Living in London now costs that person £1,000 per month in real disposable income. Every single month, year after year, the quality of what you get for those astronomical housing costs has also deteriorated. London flats are shrinking. The average new build one-bedroom apartment in London is now under 40 square metres. That is smaller than many hotel rooms. Developers have squeezed every inch of value from land prices by building ever smaller units, knowing that desperate renters will pay whatever is asked. You are not just paying more. You are paying more for less, and the properties themselves are often poorly maintained. Landlords facing rising costs and uncertain regulation have reduced investment in their properties. Damp, poor heating, outdated kitchens, and cramped conditions that would be unacceptable elsewhere are standard in London because tenants have no alternatives. The competition for any available rental is so intense that standards have collapsed. You take what you can get and feel grateful to have found anything at all. This is not the London experience that people signed up for. This is survival mode dressed up as city living. Transport was always London's redeeming feature. Yes, housing was expensive, but the tube and bus network meant you could live without a car and get anywhere quickly. That advantage has been seriously eroded. Transport for London fares have increased dramatically, with a single tube journey now costing nearly £3 and a monthly travel card for zones 1 to 4 costing over £230. That is almost £2,800 per year, just to commute, assuming you already live in London. Add in the actual experience of commuting, and the picture worsens. The tube is more overcrowded than ever, with passenger numbers exceeding pre-pandemic levels, while service reliability has declined. Strike action disrupts travel regularly. Weekend engineering works close lines for maintenance that never seems to end. The Elizabeth line is excellent, but it serves limited routes. For most Londoners, the daily commute means cramming into overcrowded carriages, delayed services, and stress that accumulates over years. The transport network that justified London living has become another source of frustration rather than an advantage. Then there is the social infrastructure that made London special: the restaurants, theatres, museums, nightlife, and cultural experiences that supposedly compensate for the cost and stress. Here too, the reality has changed. Going out in London has become prohibitively expensive for normal people. A pint in central London now costs £7 to £8 or more. A meal for two at a mid-range restaurant easily exceeds £100. Theatre tickets start at £50 for restricted view seats. A night out that might cost £40 in other cities costs £150 in London. When you are already spending 70% of your income on housing, these experiences become occasional treats rather than regular pleasures. The irony is that Londoners often have less access to London's attractions than tourists do. You cannot afford to enjoy the city you are paying a fortune to live in. The culture and entertainment that supposedly justify London's costs are increasingly off limits to the people who actually live there. Safety and quality of life have also shifted in ways that affect the daily experience of living in London. Violent crime has increased, with knife crime reaching record levels in recent years. Theft and antisocial behaviour have become more visible, partly because police resources have been cut and partly because economic desperation has increased. This does not mean London is dangerous compared to major cities globally, but it does mean that the sense of security that residents once felt has eroded. People are more cautious about where they walk at night. Parents worry more about their children's safety. The stress of urban living has intensified. Add in the pollution that still exceeds safe levels in many areas and the lack of green space in the areas most Londoners can afford, and you have a quality of life that increasingly fails to match the premium being paid for it. Remote and hybrid working has fundamentally changed the calculation for knowledge workers. If you only need to be in the office 2 or 3 days per week, paying London prices for London housing makes far less sense. You can live somewhere more affordable with better quality housing and commute in for your office days. Many employers now explicitly support this. Some even encourage it because it helps them recruit from a wider talent pool. The pandemic proved that remote work was possible for millions of roles. That knowledge cannot be unlearned. The workers who have the most options are increasingly choosing to use them. Young professionals who once saw London as the only place to build a career now see it as one option among many. And when they run the numbers, London often loses. The data confirms what anecdotal experience suggests. London is experiencing a significant domestic outflow. More UK-born residents are leaving London than arriving. This has been true for years, but the pace has accelerated. In the year to mid-2023, London lost over 100,000 domestic residents to other parts of the UK. The capital's population is only maintained by international migration. People who grow up in London or move there for their 20s are leaving in their 30s when they want families and homes they can actually afford. The destinations are revealing. Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Leeds and Edinburgh are gaining professional workers from London. Smaller cities like Nottingham, Sheffield and Cardiff are seeing increased interest. Even rural areas are attracting London leavers who can now work remotely. The exodus is not random. It is rational actors responding to a cost-benefit analysis that no longer favours London. What has really changed is the opportunity cost of staying. Previously, leaving London meant accepting career limitations. The best jobs were in London. The networking happened in London. The promotions went to people who were present and visible in London. Remote work has weakened all of these advantages. Careers can now be built from anywhere for many industries. Video calls have replaced many in-person meetings. The penalty for leaving has reduced dramatically, while the cost of staying has increased. The scales have tipped. Staying in London is no longer the safe default choice. It is an active decision that requires justification. And for many people, that justification is becoming harder to make. They are not leaving London because they have given up on their ambitions. They are leaving because pursuing those ambitions no longer requires sacrificing everything else. For those who remain or who are considering moving to London, the value proposition now depends entirely on specific circumstances. London still makes sense for some people. If your industry genuinely requires physical presence and networking that can only happen in person, then London may remain necessary. Finance, certain creative industries, politics, and some professional services still concentrate in London in ways that matter for career progression. If you are young, single, and prioritise experience over savings, then London's intensity and diversity might justify a few years despite the cost. If you have family wealth that means housing costs do not consume your income, then London's downsides are much less painful. If you are already on the housing ladder in London, with a property bought years ago at lower prices, then the calculation is completely different. But for the typical professional in their late 20s or 30s with no family property wealth, London has become a trap. You earn good money but save nothing. You work hard but live in cramped, uncomfortable conditions. You have access to world-class culture but cannot afford to enjoy it. You sacrifice your present for a future home ownership that recedes further away each year. The compound effect of London's costs becomes clearer with age. At 25, the excitement compensates for the cramped flat share. At 30, the same flat share feels depressing, while friends elsewhere are buying houses. At 35, still renting a one-bedroom flat while contemporaries in other cities have families in proper homes becomes genuinely painful. London's bad deal reveals itself most clearly over time, as the opportunity cost of staying compounds. The irony is that London's success created the conditions for its current problems. It attracted so much talent and investment that property became a vehicle for wealth storage rather than housing. Foreign buyers, wealthy investors, and buy-to-let landlords poured money into London property as an asset class, pricing out actual residents. The city's economic success drove housing costs beyond what its workers could afford. The workers who make London function, teachers, nurses, transport staff, hospitality workers, even junior professionals, are now priced out of the city they serve. London has become a victim of its own desirability, with housing costs detached from local incomes in ways that undermine its long-term viability as a functioning city. Government policy has consistently failed to address this. Help to Buy inflated prices further. Affordable housing requirements were routinely negotiated away by developers. The Green Belt prevented sensible expansion. Rent controls were rejected as market interference. The result is a housing market that serves investors rather than residents. No major political party has proposed solutions proportionate to the scale of the problem. London's housing crisis is treated as inevitable rather than as a policy choice. But it is a policy choice. Other major cities manage to house their workers affordably. London's failure to do so is a consequence of decisions made and decisions avoided over decades. The people paying the price are ordinary Londoners who simply want a decent home, at a price that leaves room for the rest of life. For those currently living in London and feeling trapped by these dynamics, my honest advice is to run the numbers ruthlessly. Calculate what you actually spend on housing as a percentage of your income. Compare it to what you would spend in alternative locations. Factor in the salary difference honestly, not what London jobs theoretically pay, but what you actually earn. Consider quality of life factors like space, commute time, and access to green areas. Project forward 5 and 10 years under current conditions. If the numbers do not work, they will not magically improve. London's costs are not coming down. Your salary is unlikely to dramatically outpace them. The decision to leave is not giving up. It is recognising when a trade no longer serves you. For those considering moving to London, especially young professionals at the start of their careers, my advice is more nuanced. London can still be worth it for specific goals over defined time periods. 2 or 3 years in London for career acceleration in certain industries can pay dividends that last a lifetime. But go in with clear objectives and exit criteria. Know what you want to achieve and how long you are willing to sacrifice for it. Do not drift into an indefinite London stay because moving feels hard. The golden handcuffs of a London salary that just about covers London costs can trap you for years, while opportunities elsewhere slip away. London should be a strategic choice, not a default one. The fundamental shift is that London's deal has gone from good to questionable to actually bad for a large proportion of potential residents. The costs have risen relentlessly, while the benefits have eroded or become available elsewhere. This does not mean London is finished or declining. It remains an extraordinary city with genuine advantages. But those advantages no longer automatically outweigh the costs for typical professional workers. The calculation has changed, and anyone making decisions about where to live needs to recognise that. Living in London now requires either specific circumstances that justify the premium, or acceptance that you are paying for something other than rational economic value. Nostalgia, identity, inertia, or genuine love of the city are all valid reasons. But pretending the deal still works when it clearly does not is a path to frustration and regret. This is the reality of London in 2024, a city that built its appeal on opportunity and now struggles to offer value for money. A place where housing costs have outpaced what housing delivers. An economy where the salary premium has shrunk while the cost premium has grown. London is not collapsing. But for millions of people, especially those in the middle who earn too much to access support, but too little to afford comfort, it has stopped making sense. The exodus will continue. The people leaving are not failures. They are people who did the maths and made the rational choice. The question for anyone still in London or considering a move is simple. Does this deal work for you specifically, with your actual income, your actual career needs, and your actual quality of life requirements? If the answer is no, there is no shame in accepting that. London's best days may not be behind it, but the era when it made sense for everyone is definitely over. Thank you for watching UK Property Info. If this analysis helped you think about your own situation, please share it with others facing the same decisions. Understanding the true